All right, welcome back, everybody, to our CGDQ 10th anniversary broadcast. And we are ready for the end of the Mega Man X trifecta. I think we might be saving the best for the last with X3 because this is pretty much the game that he's known for out of all of the X games that he runs. So I think we're gonna expect a really, really good performance, as if his first two weren't already fantastic. So I'll go ahead and let Hetfield and Justin take it away, and I think we're ready for a countdown.
Alrighty. So yeah, as Darkman said, yeah, this is Luiz's strongest game. So we're hoping for a 39 here. So when Luiz is ready, we're gonna give the countdown. So in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. So we have a little bit of time before we actually start getting movement. So you're going to see a lot of mechanics from X2 apply in X3. There's a couple of exceptions. The dash lemon mechanic only works for the normal enemies. It does not work on the bosses, although it does work for Mo, the intro boss. We might see him attempt the CFO strat here, but we'll see how that works out when we get there. And you actually get to play as Zero for a little bit in the intro.
So they finally decided to make Zero a playable character, but he's pretty marginalized in this game. Mostly you just play as X the whole time.
Yeah. And much like the X2 intro, there's basically no RNG in the intro stage.
Outside of the boss fight.
Outside of the boss fight, yeah, but the stage in general has no random.
Just a fun little trivia for everybody who may not be able to see chat. Michael Yama, who was the original CGDQ runner, is actually in chat right now, kind of talking about his experiences and how he considered this run not his strongest performance. It's kind of nice to have that little reminiscent time.
All right. Zero, yeah. Luiz gets the Zero gap jump there. The gaps in the ladder gaps in X3 are really, really wide, but so is Zero's hitbox. So that's actually a pretty tough jump to get. And I think the ladder is actually the normal size, if I'm not mistaken, for that one. So yeah, you get Zero just for a short time, and you notice that he actually has the saber. And we're going to get used to that a little bit later.
So, similarly to X3, or X1 I would say, this run is more similar to X1's ending percent run than X2's. X1 you only get all the mandatory upgrades, which is just the dash boots and the buster. X2 you get all of the upgrades, but in X3 you only get some of them. You get the air dash boots, and you get the saber. I mentioned the gold armor Easter egg before, which you need all the upgrades to get, but there's a second Easter egg in this game actually, or arguably an Easter egg, where you can get Zero saber later on, and it's a little bit different from the Shoryuken. You do not need full health to use it, but you have to charge up to be able to use it, and it two-shots bosses instead of one-shotting them. So those will be the only two upgrades that we're going to see him getting. So the run ends up being more similar to X1 in terms of movement through the stages and such.
Okay, so the very first stage we enter once we get choice is the Buffalo stage, and that is to get the air dash boots, because you're gonna need the air dash boots quite a bit in the run. This game is more vertical climbing oriented in some aspects than the other two games. So having the up dash can be helpful, especially when we get to Doppler 2, where the up dash is basically going to be required in order to go fast at the end. And the slope jump when we mentioned the slope jump physics earlier, in this stage, when you go down a slope, the ice slopes, it shoots X really, really fast, similar to like the minecart from X1 Armadillo. So you saw him go really, really fast at the start.
So the boss fight here, pretty much every boss in this game either has some sort of like iframe reset mechanic or some sort of AI manipulation, some way to just choose the fight. This boss has an iframe manipulation. If you're above Blizzard Buffalo's head, every time he turns around, right when he turns around, it actually forces him to dash left into the wall like that. For reasons we don't understand, but it helps us save time on the fight. And then while Luiz is juggling that to keep him up against the wall, he's also doing the Doppler effect in between each pair of shots in order to get his charge shots as quickly as possible, which saves over 3 seconds over just using nothing but charge shots. So that's actually a really difficult strategy to learn, because it's pretty difficult to juxtapose both the vertical dancing to do the AI manipulation and the horizontal dancing to do the Doppler effects.
Yeah, once you get Blizzard Buffalo's weapon, we pretty much follow the weakness order until we get closer to the end of the 8 Mavericks. Then there's a little bit of a deviation from the weakness order. But you see here, this first vertical section in Seahorse, the emphasis on climbing and movement. So these doors that Luiz is going through right now don't come into play, but you'll understand why here in a couple stages. But for right now, they have no importance. So the Frost Shield is a very, very powerful weapon. Arguably like #1 or #2 weapon in the game. Just because of it's a weakness for a lot of the bosses, and plus in X3, this also applies in X2 a little bit, but it's even more defined in X3. The Frost Shield actually guarantees weapon refills when you destroy specific enemies. And the Acid Shot, which you'll get in this stage, guarantees weapon drops. X2 has a similar thing, but it's actually more useful here.
Yeah, the X2 one is like when you use Crystal Hunter, it gives you either or, I think.
It gives you weapon refills, and I think Strike Chain gives you health. But I think for the Strike Chain, it's not guaranteed.
The Strike Chain is like the charge one, doing damage gives you a drop, even if it's against a boss.
Yeah.
But yeah, here we're going to see Luiz doing an iframe reset mechanic on Toxic Seahorse there, where when you hit him with the Frost Shield, it bugs out Seahorse's iframes and gives him 0 iframes at all for a certain period and you were able to see him just mash the Frost Shields into him when he was on the ground like that and just kill him extremely quickly.
Yeah. Even though it looks like he's flashing, he doesn't have iframes at a specific spot. What ends up happening, Seahorse gets stunned for an X amount of time, but after he gets stunned, his iframes actually expire from the initial Frost hit. So there's a gap between the stun iframes and when he jumps out that you can actually mash into him, and it won't re-trigger the iframe.
Yeah, and you have to be careful that you don't go over that period of time, because then you will trigger the iframe, so it takes a bit of finesse to get that 2 cycle down.
Okay, so now we're deviating from the weakness order. We're going to Tiger next. Well, actually, Luiz does. You can actually alter between Rhino third, which I think he might have meant to go to Rhino, but accidentally went to Tiger. It's hard to say.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
The route for this run is basically weakness order, but Tiger can be anywhere. The weakness against him just sucks.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Luis meant to go to Rano, because you normally want the drills in this stage to kind of dash through enemies after this mini boss. But luckily he went to Tiger instead of another stage, or it would have been bad.
Yeah, the drill on this stage saves a few frames, but generally, if you're doing PB attempts, you would put Tiger earlier just to get. He's one of the heaviest RNG bosses in the game, so you just get him out of the way, get the RNG resets.
So coming up, we're going to come up to those big giant rooms that Luis went through, and there's a possibility of Bit showing up here in one of the next stages. And the fight with Bit and Bite are mandatory. You must beat them throughout the 8 Mavericks before you can get into the Doppler stages. And you notice right at the start that Luis didn't start with a weakness weapon. He started with a lemon. And then he went to his weakness, which is Frost Shield. And you're going to see here before he finishes the fight, he's going to actually cancel off of the Frost Shield and hit him with another Buster Shot. And this is so that he just scares him off and doesn't make him explode, because it's not necessary to destroy Bit and Bite in the X3 anyway.
If you destroy Bit and Bite, you'll fight a different boss later on, versus if you just beat them in the fight. It destroys them if you beat them with their weakness. So Luis didn't want to do that because it gives them a 10-second or so boss explosion. And Tiger, Seahorse, has another glitched iframe mechanic where whenever he uses a move, his iframes reset. So you'll see him just shooting multiple shots into him like that, and then he charges up a Buster Shot to use while he's using his attack, because if you shoot a charge shot at him while he's not doing an attack, he'll block it. So you just gotta shoot uncharged at him.
And now Luis is getting some bad luck here at the end. Yeah, this is one of the few rare times where not having the weakness is beneficial.
Yeah, I think you can knock him out of that immunity if you have Spinning Blade.
No, once he goes invincible, he has to finish it.
Oh.
Yeah, if you hit him with his actual weakness, the Spinning Blade, which only deals 2 damage, by the way, I'm pretty sure, it actually forces him to go to the wall in the top corner.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and then you have to do some weird finesse shot with the blade to continually hitting him without him doing an attack. Alright, now this is the stage I think Luis meant to go first instead of Tiger. So we won't see any benefit with the Ray Splasher. But this is a really, really difficult stage for 2 reasons. Number one, you see all the intense climbing, but on top of that, almost every enemy in this stage deals a ton of damage on contact.
And a really precise strat there. You saw him kill that wall crab and then dodge the corner of the floor below him while he was falling. That's one of the most precise tricks in the game, even though it only saves maybe 5-10 frames.
Yeah.
Because you have to shoot a charge shot and an uncharged shot at him in order to kill him, and you're right in his face when you're doing that movement to dodge the corner. So it's really difficult to do, and Luis made it look easy.
Alright, now for the Hell Crusher mini boss, you're gonna see Luis's matching at its finest. That was a 1 bonk.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, I believe Luis uses a technique called double mashing.
Yeah, he double mashes that.
Basically, he puts the controller, the 2 sides of the controller, in the inside of his knuckles in his hand, and then he puts both thumbs over the shoot button and then just shakes his wrist back and forth. So with each oscillation, you're either moving the controller into your left thumb or pressing the controller with your right thumb. So it's basically 2 inputs for every movement instead of 1. He's able to mash really quickly and just take out that boss.
Yeah, and you see the ladders in Buffalo and Rhino are really, really big, so the ladder gaps are really wide, so it's really easy to hit gap jumps compared to the other 2. And the boss fights are really, really straightforward in X3 because it's basically a buster shot and 10 hits with their weakness for most of them. But each boss has a desperation attack at various HP values. Oh, nice. Luis got the shortened charge there. What he did there is he'll trigger his desperation attack there, and he's actually dashing into the wall so that Rhino will go in his direction, which is right against the wall. So instead of him going across the room and then stopping, he just instantly does that charge in place, and that saves, I think, a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
It's really, really precise because... and it's also risky because if you have very low health, you take double damage if you touch him in that rainbow charge.
And I believe if you're touching the wall when he hits the wall, it stuns you and you just fall on top of him.
Yeah, and you get lag too.
No, so Justin mentioned this before, but now that Luis has the drill move, it actually makes you, if you time it precise, you can actually go through.
Oh, sick! He went for the glitch there.
Yeah, that's a one of the more newly discovered strats. If you trigger the lightning from that enemy on the ceiling, it actually makes the elevator start doing damage, and then you can use the iframes from the elevator to climb those spikes there and save a little.
Yeah, I'm not sure if the drill helps with that because the drill actually slows down the animation of whatever it's hitting. So it's kind of like, I want to say it almost like transfers that effect over onto the elevator. That's pretty crazy.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Okay, now a big part of this run is catfish RNG. So you notice that Luis does have his true weakness weapon, but he's not starting the fight with it. For the first half of Catfish's HP, he's just going to simply hop around and fire either that ground spark or do a Tri-Thunder. Now, once Catfish gets to right at half health, we're going to hope that Luis is going to kind of stay against the wall, and hopefully Catfish will keep jumping.
Yeah,
like
I forget exactly.
Go ahead.
So he gets a 3 drill pattern here. That's not too... I forget which ones it is, but he can only do certain moves while he's facing to the left, and he can only do certain moves while he's facing to the right, Catfish. So if you just hang on the left wall like that, you'll actually be able to keep Catfish in his first phase without him going to his second phase indefinitely. But since Luis doesn't have much health or armor, he can't stay there forever, so he has to let Catfish transition eventually.
Yeah, you can only... Yeah, a bonk on Catfish is like 2 damage, which is a lot better than getting hit for 4 damage from a desperation attack. He gets a jolt and he goes invincible and he does all that. So, as I mentioned with Bit before, Bit has to be fought in one of those first 3 stages after that cutscene with Bit, Bite, and Val. And we're getting the Bite fight right here, which is pretty nice.
So this fight, in order to end it with the Buster, is a little bit trickier than the Bit fight because those drills like to stay on screen for a long time and do multiple instances of things. So you'll see Luis fire multiple drills at one point here, even when the second one's not doing damage, just to make it despawn at the proper time there so he can swap the Buster and finish the fight. If you mess that up, then you just have to menu your weapon swap to make the drill despawn. Otherwise, you'll kill Bite and get a long explosion.
Yeah, and Luis ended that fight on the right so that once he gets control, he's already touching the door position. So we're taking a detour here to fight Val. Now this detour takes about, I think, a couple of minutes, but you'll see why we take this detour once we get to the end of Doppler 2 and to the end.
Yeah, similarly to X2, where you get all the upgrades to get the Shoryuken in X2. Well, this one, all you have to do to get the Saber is to kill Vile on this stage and then do something else in one of the Fortress stages. And it saves much more time than the cost. But yeah, this stage here, this Vile secret stage is completely optional.
So the weakness to Vile on both phases is the Ray Splasher. But it's very critical that Luis does not miss a shot here, because you have to hit Vile with the Ray Splasher on the final shot that kills him. If he does not do this, he cannot kill Vile, and he misses out on the Saber.
Yeah, and I believe at that point it's faster to just hit your reset button and put the auto password in to get back to the stage, because if you don't have the Saber, you're losing lots and lots of time.
And then after this fight, he has to go through an escape sequence. And there's actually a timer that this plays, so you can actually gauge how fast you got through to the end. We want to see a 29 when the screen fades out at the very end. 28 is still good, but 29 requires like near perfect execution. So you see Luis is using the Triad Thunder, and you see it inverted. How he does that, if you press the shot button at least 4 times before the electrodes discharge, it actually inverts the triangle. And you can actually do that for 3 additional times before the triangle has to go off screen. And he got the 29, barely too, I think. So Triad Thunder is a very powerful weapon. As you see, he's using it as a shield to kill these enemies that are in his way, so he doesn't take any damage.
That's really useful for those weaker enemies, because it protects them in all directions.
Yeah. So we're getting ready to see the Crawfish quick kill. Similar to the Seahorse quick kill, you're going to see him use his actual true weakness weapon. But Crawfish, his iframe period will expire, and then there's like, 2 seconds of a period that Luis can just mash into him. But unfortunately, you can't use the Triad to mash, so you're going to see him swap off of it into Buster and just mash like a madman, and he'll try to get the 2 cycle just like Seahorse. And he's got it.
Yeah, really nice.
So you cannot swap to Buster until the electrode is completely off screen. So you have to keep an eye on that as well. And then you have to jump at a specific time, because that forces Crawfish to fire the little shot up into the ceiling. So that's also a very important thing to note. Okay, so I think we're back on weakness route for the rest of the Mavericks. And this is probably one of the best tracks in the game. And now that we've actually got Bot out of the way, we can actually hear this song uninterrupted.
The Spinning Blade, which he just got from Crawfish, is one of the most powerful weapons in the game. Probably
I'd say that's top 2. I'd say Ice in this is the best weapon.
Yeah, it one-shots like even powerful enemies. It's insane how much damage it. The only flip side of it is that if you miss with one or both of the shots, you have to wait a long time for it to boomerang off screen before you can use it again.
Yeah, most of the weapons you can only have one of them on screen at any given time. So if you miss a shot, it punishes you really hard. Especially Blast Hornet fight, which you'll see in the next stage. Nice Ellie skips there, utilizing the up dash and using the blades. I think he drill too. So the Beetle fight is very, very easy. Every time he gets hit with a Ray Splasher, he's just going to jump forward, and then he's just going to do it again. Just hit him with the Ray Splasher. If you hit a boss with their true weakness in this game, it actually gives them longer iframes than if you were to hit them with Buster.
Yeah, generally that makes the weakness not even worth using
Yeah.
on them, or at the very least, just alternating between Buster and the weakness. That is the faster strat to do on this fight. If you charge up, you use the Ray Splasher, cancel it with an air dash, and then charge up a Buster while the boss is in his long iframes. But since you're hitting him with Buster, you're opening up the door for him to give you some really bad RNG, so it's generally you don't do it in real time.
Yeah. Gravity Beetle does have a rainbow charge where he'll try to like deadlift you, similar to Kuwanger in X1. But Ray Splasher fortunately can interrupt that.
Yeah, and Gravity Beetle and Wanger are like cousins or something, I think.
Yeah, they're Beetle cousins. Okay, can he get the low percent kicks? He's got the first, and he's got the second. Nice.
Yeah, really nice. Those are fairly precise.
Yeah, if you're playing low percent, that is the way to get up that elevator shaft, because that's the only way to do it, because you don't have the up dash boots. But alternatively, the up dash can help you there.
Yeah, it's much easier with the up dash, but it is slower. Here we have Genji Bow, which might as well be Chop Register's cousin.
Yeah, the Genji Bow is the thing that spawns the Shuriken. But, yeah, not a bad fight. When you hit the Shuriken there with the acid, it does give you a longer period of iframes. And the Shuriken automatically jumps when it's hit. Ooh. Luis trying to reduce as much lag as possible by just using dash lemons instead of charge buster shot. But like Hetfield said before, you can only have one dash lemon, or at least one lemon that has the dash property active at a time. So in order to go through that section cleanly, you have to fire a dash lemon right as the previous one is despawned. And sometimes that risks getting up way close. So you haven't seen it yet, but Luis is actually going to use a soft weakness for Hornet, which is the spinning blade. Gravity Well is actually slower in any percent skew, even though it's really, really safe.
Yeah, the Gravity Well, it does 1 damage per tick, but it hits multiple times, but it induces a lot of iframes on the boss, I think.
Yeah, you have to wait for the Gravity Well to return to X before you can fire another one. But with the, as you see with these spinning blades, as soon as both of the blades get into Hornet, he can just fire another one, and that's a sick fight. That's probably, like, crazy good.
Yeah. Unlike X1 and X2, where the dash lemons did 2 damage to bosses, in X3 they only do 1. So to be able to have spinning blade, which does 2 damage to the boss every second, it saves a lot of time on that fight. Versus whatever the alternatives would be, using Gravity Well or some sort of like Buster and Ray Splasher.
So now we're heading into the Doppler stages. So the difficulty really starts to ramp up in these first 2 Doppler stages. Stages 3 and 4 are just a series of boss rushes. So we're going to see if Luis gets the acid gap shot here. He can take out this little guy right here. Boom, he gets it. Because normally, when you try to climb that ladder, you always get hit by the little shot that the guy fires at you. But you can actually snipe him before he doesn't have a chance to do so. Then he has to avoid getting crushed by the elevator here. Oh, he got the gap at the top of the elevator. That's really hard.
Yeah, these gap jumps, or that one in particular, is harder to get because you're at dash speed when you're going for it. So there's a much lower window, timing-wise, to get your positioning perfectly to go through the gap.
And he went for the double ice shot, which is really nice.
Yeah, to do that mini-boss there optimally, you need to balance killing it quickly while also moving to the right. So you basically want him to die right when you get to the screen lock is how you want to.
So Luis is at half health due to that damage boost. Ooh, I really kind of hope that he picked up a health there. The problem is the next boss coming up, the God Card Machine fight. If he gets grabbed or he gets hit by a sword or the beams, he's dead instantly on the spot. So whether the status of Bit and Bite will determine what end boss you fight here. If at least Bit or Bite is alive, you will always fight the God Card Machine fight. The only way you fight the ultimate boss is if you intentionally destroy both of them during the 8 average. So he has to dash under the sword beams here, and he can shoot up to 4 of those, or he'll go right into trying to grab. So he actually got the faster pattern, I think, where he does the sword beam. But you got to really be careful to dash under all the beams.
Yeah.
You could actually run into the base of the God Card Machine there. That is also a hurt box, and you can die that way too. So you got to be really careful. And Louise is actually on 39 pace. Sub 30 God Card Machine teleport is 39 pace.
So now in the Doppler 2 stage.
Oh, that's gonna hurt. Oh no, that's a hard section.
Yeah, there's a precise strat that Louise goes for there, where he uses the hitbox of the Parasite Bomb to remove the hitbox of the enemy as he's climbing, but it is pretty precise since you're going upward, and it's easy to bonk your head before the Parasite Bomb hits him. So now this is the second time we use Zero in the fight, in the game, just so he can get owned by this Mosquitoes mini-boss here, because for whatever reason, if I forget how like Zero works, but if he ever goes down to 0 HP, you can't use him for the rest of the game, right?
Yeah, if Zero ever dies while you're using him, he's gone for good.
Yeah, and then
but
it's just...
yeah, and this is the only mini boss that he can actually fight. Like, if you try to get close to a mini boss door with Zero, the game automatically swaps X.
So now that he's gotten the saber from Zero, unfortunately.
Oh. Well, that's not a bad death. It loses maybe 10 seconds, because right here is the checkpoint.
But now that he has the air dash and the saber from Zero, you can see he's doing those same neon jumps that you were seeing in X2, which is the main reason why you get the dash boots, because it allows him to do this elevator skip strat here, which is one of the hardest strats.
Yeah.
Very
okay,
nice.
got it. Okay, you got it.
So you see him taking a lot of intentional damage boosts to gain immunity frames, so he can wall jump off those spikes, and then also using those neon jumps to gain more height during...
So yeah, so one of the things about using the saber is that you have to have any previous charge shots completely off screen before you can use it. So right there when Volkrego fires that little claw thing down towards X there, Luis fired his charge shot into it to despawn it really quickly, so he's able to fire the saber as soon as possible. You're going to see that tech quite a bit coming up in the boss rush. Because it's the only way to get the saber out really fast. And you're actually going to see that come into play on the Toxic Seahorse refight. Since Seahorse has no iframes when he does the quick kill, he can just fire the charge shot into Seahorse and then follow up with the saber. So as you see there, Luis fires the initial charge shot into the wall to get it off screen as fast as possible, and then he can follow up with the saber. And also, on some of these kills, you'll see Luis turn away from the boss when he kills him. And that's because the saber actually is active the moment X pulls it from behind him. So you're going to see a little green little curve. That's the active saber. right here. You should see it here on Buffalo. So like that. It actually extends quite a few pixels past X's back foot. So you don't have to be right up point blank close, but you gotta be decently close for the saber to touch. So here's the Seahorse quick kill. He's gonna start with a nice shot, just like the first fight, but then he's gonna instantly cancel into the saber like that.
Yeah, and we mentioned that it takes 2 hits to kill bosses with the saber. Well, there's kind of a stipulation on that. The saber doesn't just do 16 damage like once. It actually deals 16 damage per frame that its hitbox is out. And well, bosses, they just take 1 instance of damage and then they have immunity frames. Well, for the bosses that have the immunity frame glitches, like Seahorse there and Crawfish, you just do 16 damage on 1 frame, 16 damage on the next, and it one-shots the boss.
Yeah. So you'll see that coming up again on Crawfish.
Tiger is probably the trickiest of the refights with the saber because he has that mechanic where if you shoot a charge shot, he blocks. If he goes to block your charge shot, he'll when you shoot it, when you go to saber him, he'll still be blocking and
still the charge.
Yeah, so you have to fire your charge shot while he's doing an attack, I think, in order to make him not do the block.
Oh, I think Luis tried to go for the fast catfish kill, but I think he lost his charge mid fight. And that's another really tricky part about using the saber, is that it actually has some startup animation to it. It doesn't come out instantly like, the Hadouken and Shoryuken does. So if you get damaged while you're like prepping the attack, it gets interrupted and you lose it.
Yeah, unfortunately, if you're in your knockback animation when you try to use it, it expends your charge, but it doesn't come out, so you just
like even if you charge up to green, like if you have the saber and you charge up to green and you get damaged and then you release the charge shot, you actually lose the whole thing.
Yeah,
so
one thing
pretty tricky.
One thing we forgot to mention is that the saber upgrade is based on your final. It replaces your final charge. So if you have the Buster upgrade, then you have to charge like your 2nd tier, 3rd tier, 4th tier.
Yeah.
I think it's 4 tiers. So it takes like 2 or 3 seconds to charge the full thing, and then you have to dump more shots to use it. Well, when you don't have the Buster upgrade like this, you see Luis only has to charge to that 2nd tier of charge in order to use it, and he only has to dump 1 shot. So one of the reasons why any percent is much, much faster than 100%.
And there's the quick kill on Crawfish. And the window for Crawfish is really long, so you don't even have to be super optimal with that kill to get it. So it's very, very lenient. Yeah, and also going back to the Tiger refight, if you had Hyper C, that's the only exception to Tiger blocking charge shot is using Hyper C, because it's like pressing a lemon shot, and it doesn't consider that to be charged.
Yeah, I don't know if that's intentional or just like how it was coded, and they just left it that way.
So Luis has got plenty of health to try the Doppler quick kill. So for the 2nd saber, he's going to ditch shot into the wall, and then there's enough of a gap between the wall and Doppler that X can just stand there and not take damage.
Yeah, really.
But he has to nail the saber without Doppler being in iframes, because Doppler can fire one of those plasma shots. He'll take damage. Touching Doppler is 8 damage, so gotta be real careful.
You also saw that like squiggly barrier thing that he used at the start of the fight. If you hit him while he's doing that, he'll heal the damage right back up afterwards. So Luis had to wait the first one, but the second one you can just use it because it takes him 0 and he can't heal.
Yeah, the fight's instantly over once the HP is at 0. Yeah, Saber Gap run verified.
Yeah, that's probably the swaggiest trick in the game. Just
And I think also like the very next Saber he did, I don't think the blade came out, and that's we'll try to explain why that is after we get through the fight. Oh, quick kill, nice. That's a really hard trick to do because it requires some precise weapon canceling, and you got to make sure that X is in the air when he fires the Saber, because it is considered a neon shot, and when you fire a neon on the ground, it actually locks you in place.
And Captain America Sigma shield hitboxes can sometimes block your hit, and it's kind of deceptive sometimes.
So, same thing here. He's gonna deboost here, just so he can get the quick kill. Very nice final fight. He's just gonna miss the 39 just because of that death, but that's a really, really sick run.
This might be close. I don't know if he can make Mike's 49-minute time,
No, it's 27 seconds from when he gets text cleared, virus shows up. So it's gonna be like a 39, or I mean a 40, maybe 1x. But if it wasn't for that unfortunate bonk into that Victoroid and Doppler 2, yeah, that was definitely like 39able. $40-19.
Yeah, really good run. Yeah, so that was X 1, 2, and 3 any percent categories run. All three of them by LuizMiguel.
Yeah, that was really good. And thank you to Justin and Hetfield for providing commentary for all three. We really appreciate it.
For having me.
Of course. Yeah, so with that ends the Mega Man saga of CGDQ. But up next, we have Bionic Commando, which is going to be run by one of our original CGDQ runners, Feasel. So stick around, and we will be back in a few minutes with some more CGDQ action.
All right. Enjoy the rest of the marathon, guys.